a national tasting event every year for harder to find, lesser known champagne sparkling wines, and we also do the awards each year. So again, we have, this year is a little bit limited, as we all have been with COVID, but usually each year we have about 50 judges from around the world to come in and taste the entries to decide which are the best wines, sparkling wines of the world. So we are focused on champagne and sparkling wine, but also importantly, everything around champagne and sparkling wine. So that can be, as I've discussed with you many times, the sustainability, your carbon footprint, and it could be the tourism, and it could also be the food and the people behind making sparkling wines.
Really, really interesting. So sustainability is something that Slow Food has partnered with Glass of Bubbly over. Slow Food are particularly interested in how food and drink is produced and its impact. What do you think sustainability means for the wine business, and how important is it for the wine business?
I think in all politeness, I think there's two answers to that, Shane. I think primarily there is an actual feeling of giving back to nature what it gives to the wineries, and I think that's very important. So there's going to be people that are leading very much with a sincere regard to protecting our planet, but there's also a business kind of side of things, that they know that if they have on their bottles of wine that they are respecting the environment, that there's a lot of people, especially a younger generation, that appreciate those that are making that effort. So it could increase their sales. It could increase the amount of money they can charge per bottle. So, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's a good thing, you know. So sustainability in the wine industry is a positive thing.
Absolutely. I think our view would certainly be, and it'd be interesting if you share that view, that actually it almost doesn't matter. And actually, if they get extra sales because they are being more sustainable, then that's great, because actually business is what's going to drive this. And if people are actively looking for more sustainable products, and certainly in our experience, we know that people are looking for that, certainly in the food world. I know my colleagues in Slow Wine and Slow Food produces the biggest selling wine directory in the world, the Slow Wine Guide. They would certainly say that if producers can get a premium for doing this, then it creates a business incentive, and that's got to be a positive thing.
Well, I think it does, and let's just face it, that the wineries that are making the added effort to become sustainable may have to incur extra costs to do it, or massive changes. So on that basis, it's costing them more, potentially time and money. So there has to be a reward for that. And if our planet, if our buyers are looking more towards sustainability, then it's a win-win situation. They're producing wines that with more regard to the planet, and people are appreciating that factor by buying the wine. And another important factor, and I had a tasting here the other day, is that we're not losing flavor or aroma quality by going down the sustainability route, which is an important factor.
Absolutely. I mean, certainly in the food route, I mean, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on wine. If you take conventional farmers and they then start growing in a more sustainable way, that they use less inputs, whilst the yields can sometimes decrease, though not always, it depends on the product, but sometimes yields do decrease. They tend to find that the flavor of that product, whatever it is, tends to increase. It tends that whatever it is they're producing tends to grow more slowly, and there's much more flavor there. Is it the same in wine? So do we sometimes see drops in yields, but do we see greater flavor profiles?
Well, I think looking at, say, from a consumer's point of view, if you go into the supermarket and you're going for a bottle of organic wine, let's just say organic wine, you're not fearful, but you're expecting possibly less flavors, less taste, but hey, I'm making a contribution to flavor in our planet. But I've done tastings. I did a Prosecco tasting just the other day. I had the same label, one, should we say, non-organic, one organic. And in fact, they were equal. There was not one superior than the other. There was character of one wine, there was character to the other wine. And the chap that was with me on the day, he appreciated some elements of the non-organic, and he appreciated other elements of the organic option. So on that basis, you know, if you are choosing the sustainable route, you're not going to lose any quality on wines. I can't obviously account for every winery everywhere. Of course. There may be some wineries that have just got into this mode of sustainability, and they've got a little bit to learn. But even if we look at, say the Champagne region, they have to, by 2030, adhere to certain criteria on how they produce, how they make their wines, how they produce the grapes ultimately. And they have to give a better green footprint than what they used to do. And if they don't, then they're going to have to probably adhere to have fines, should we say, if they don't. But it's a positive thing. When I visit wineries, they're very proud to tell me, and they show me on their bottles and their logos, that we are trying to become fully sustainable as a winery. And in our hearts, we're happy to be that way.
I mean, many winemakers, particularly those which are grower winemakers, not all winemakers, of course, produce their own fruit, but certainly the grower winemakers are invariably custodians of their land, just like any other farmer. They're looking after that land for a period of time and passing it on to the next generation, or if it's company owned, it's still being passed on in a sense. So I guess that really does make sense. I think it's also really interesting you're speaking about Champagne. I know an area that you visit a lot, but certainly within the slow food world, we're really aware that climate change is affecting Champagne perhaps faster than any other wine growing area in France. And I know my colleagues in Slow Food France are certainly speaking about that. And actually, even very, very slight temperature increases in the Champagne region is going to hugely affect the profile of those wines. It's going to affect the acidity and the sugar content. And of course, that holds true whether you're in California or whether you're in Australia, but actually for the wines of Champagne, where there's that very, very fine band of temperature which affecting the sugar and the acidity, they are going to see effects. So it doesn't surprise me for you to say that actually they're now thinking about introducing fines, and those wineries need to be more sustainable.
Well, I think another important factor here, Shane, is that going back a few years, probably people approached the sustainability route without too much knowledge backing, and they had to be the advocates. They had to make all the mistakes for others to learn from. Whereas today, and this is why we chose yourselves, there is inspiration from others that have achieved. There's guidelines, there is help. So it's not literally, I'm going to become sustainable, I'm going out on my own and venture into something unknown. I can actually call upon specialist organizations. I can even phone up my rival wineries. And because it is such a positive kind of a collaboration between the two brands, I'm happy to share with you how you can become more sustainable, or with yourselves, we can call upon you to say, look, I've got a winery, I want to improve my sustainability, please help.
Yeah. No, I think that's really, really exciting. So I see a very, very large cork on your desk there next to the bottle.
I tell you what, I'm unhappy that I don't have the bottle to go with it. I've just got the cork.
You've just got the cork. I mean, I think if you find the bottle, send it to me.
Yes.
But this is a trophy. So it's the Glass of Bubbly Sustainability Trophy.
Yes.
And we have worked with you, obviously, Chris, to put the standards together for that. And we're really, really proud to be doing that. So slow wine is something which is particularly important within the Slow Food family. I know, looking at the attendees here, that we have people again around the world in some of our countries, particularly the wine producing countries. Slow wine is a very, very large project. Those of you that are watching from the UK, we have done less with it. English wine is in its infancy, though it is growing and is absolutely delicious. But we are very, very interested in how we can be working with slow wine. And I guess our first project within the slow wine world here in the UK is actually working with Chris with Glass of Bubbly. Many of our English wines here are sparkling wines. There are great still wines as well. But particularly, I think we're producing particularly fine English sparkling wine. I don't know if your thoughts on the quality of English sparkling wine and where that's going.
I think you've summed it up there correctly. It was in its infancy a few years ago. There's a lot of knowledge being built. There's some great people coming in. We don't forget we do have even people coming over from the Champagne region to produce sparkling wine here in the UK. But ultimately, the terroir is very similar to the Champagne region. Maybe we lack a couple of centuries of history and experience, what we're producing, this country is producing very good sparkling wines, and in blind contests all around the world, sometimes they're shoulder to shoulder with champagnes, but they are their own individuality. It's its own brand. English sparkling wine, or sparkling wine from England, is its own concept. But nonetheless, I think there's much optimism going forward. I've tasted some amazing sparkling wines from England, although I've tasted amazing champagnes.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, I love both. But there's a massive opportunity for expansion. But going back to the awards, yeah, we've got this trophy here. Last year, we put it into place with yourself, Shane. You came to London to give the trophy to our first winners, which was the Motzenbacher winery from Germany. And each year going forward, we literally send a form out to the wineries that are entering. They have to tick the boxes from the criteria that you set. And if they tick those boxes, then they go into the hat to be chosen to become the sustainability wine trophy winner for the year. So this year we found the winner. I can't tell you what that is, unfortunately.
We're on tenterhooks.
At the end of the month, it will happen. But last year we had a great wine. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to pour some.
Have a glass. Make us jealous.
Have a glass. You can have a virtual glass.
I will do. Those of you that were watching, we had a cider and perry tasting yesterday evening. I did taste along. Yeah, I'm not sure I made much sense by the very end of the evening. These are very long days, but that looks particularly good. So as Chris was saying, that there is a self-audit process. It's quite a rigorous self-audit process. So in terms of the sustainability criteria, it is quite stretching. And it's not something that every single winery is either going to enter, and even if they did, that they would comply. And the idea is that it is both stretching but also achievable. And we will be looking at those standards year on year as the expectations of consumers, and also for those standards themselves to be sustainable in the other sense of the word, that we will then increase those over the coming years. So it's really fantastic for us to be working with you, Chris.
But I think at the end of the day, it's a good idea. And if everybody from consumers to businesses can do 1% activity towards sustainability, we're making progress.
Yeah.
Now with wineries, that could be it could be something as simple as how they cut the grapes, or how they transport the grapes from the vineyards to where they produce it. And also importantly is packaging. Packaging I go on a lot about. This year we had loads of entries. It's pleasing to see that some do adhere to some kind of recyclability in the packaging.
Yeah.
But we've had the style of packaging that we're sent. We get stuff sent in shoe boxes, carrier bags, plastic, the bubble wrap, which I've got here.
Got some examples. I mean, can you show us some of the things that are coming in?
So this stuff is fine. This is 100% usable. So this product here, AirTech, which is good. I'm that fussy. I look at the bloody products. I look at the thing. But some of it's not. We get cardboard. We get these kind of plastic bags that the wines can safely be transported in. There's another one here, which is the Perbacco wine box. And I believe that's used me again. So again, the sustainability factor, recycling factor, I'm not sure. But I'm starting to see more and more wineries sending their stuff in recyclable kind of packaging. But sometimes we don't. So, and when we don't, it kind of does annoy me, and automatically they can't be in the sustainability award if they come that way. But even just the packaging chain, for me, is a big thing that these wineries could look at. It may cost them a penny or two more, and I do understand that, and it's not easy, but it could make a big difference.
I think it makes a huge difference, and actually that's where I think people like your organization, Glass of Bubbly, and obviously you have your awards, but you're messaging these kind of messages throughout the year, and where organizations like Slow Food with our slow wine are equally messaging through the year. One, with consumers, so the consumers are actually asking these questions and thinking about it. I think we're all now, when we go to the shop, we're there with our cloth bags or our paper bags. We don't want the carrier bags, but are we really looking at the weight of the glass on our bottles? Are we doing that? And I think the other thing with wine, unless we're buying wine by the case and we're buying it online, most wine is sold by the bottle, and we're buying it largely in very large stores. So you don't see the packaging. And I think that is again where kind of these trade events are really important, whereby we're actually saying to the companies, this stuff matters. The consumer may not see it, but we see it. And it is an issue, and we need to be better at that, because every industry, whether you're selling beef, pork chops, cauliflowers, or if you're selling sparkling wine, we all have a part to play.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for the consumer to obviously keep on top of it. There are some people that are very passionate about this subject, and maybe when they go shopping, they do look at the back of the packages on every item before it goes into their trolley, and that's not a problem. But I mean, the wine industry does make an effort. I mean, here, you know, I can see they've got different things on the back here to tell me that they're green. They've got a leaf on the back. I'm not familiar with what organisation that is, but nonetheless, if I pick up this bottle, I'm already kind of pacified that, hey, they're making an effort, and I'm prepared to pay £1 or £2 extra per bottle purely because of that factor. Yeah, so the wineries, and there's so much wine being produced, so many wineries from across the world, that even this industry alone, with regards to sustainability, carbon footprint, giving back to nature what it gives the industry, can make a massive difference.
Absolutely. And I think we're seeing, you know, companies from, you know, really very, very small to the very, very large, you know, really investing in this. I mean, if I think of something like, you know, Seddleston Organic, which is obviously a very, very small winery. Those of you that don't know it, it produces, I don't know, 20,000 bottles a year. That they're down in Sussex, you know, producing very, very small amounts, whereby literally every item and every aspect is thought about. And then you may go to, you know, a reasonably large size producer, someone like maybe say Villa Zandy. I mean, Chris and I were very fortunate to go out and see them, and they have a whole division that just is looking at sustainability issues. And then you maybe go and see a really large producer like LVMH, who own multiple vineyards, and you know, they're introducing Shire horses in their vineyards again. They're taking the tractors out and putting Shire horses in, and what they found there is that the ground isn't being impacted, their vines are thriving. So I think whether you are producing 20,000 bottles, whether you are a fairly large producer but not in the, you know, in the huge volumes, or you are in a very, very large volume business, people are looking at it whatever stage you're in.
The other thing that I noticed when I was traveling recently for wine was sometimes there may be a battle between the younger generation and the older generation, and I totally get this. So just as an example, you may have a father, you know, in his 50s, 60s, that have run his champagne production in a certain way. And then the young man or the young daughter's coming along, wants to be in the business, but they say, Father, we need to change this, this, and this. This is a monumental change for the father that's always done things in a certain way. And it takes a lot upon the child coming in to say, we need to change this, and this, including the corks, or including the packaging, including how we produce the grapes, even the stakes that are on the side, everything. You know, I want to put a few beehives on the land, and the old father is saying, what are we paying this money for, and etc. But it's, I think the likes of yourselves on the side that are there as reference, and also a shining light with the successful wineries that are adhering to what you put out there, makes it easier. It's still a challenge, but I think especially for the younger generation, when I say young, you know, 20s to 30s coming into the wine industries, a lot of them will be very passionate on this subject, and that's a brilliant thing. And they probably need more, they need help and guidance, because they're having to combat against sometimes their parents that can be a bit stubborn because they produce champagne in a certain way, or any sparkling wine in a certain way, for generations upon generations.
Yes, and I think that also we're probably in a very, very interesting place this year. I mean, there was a survey that came out. I mean, there's always endless surveys. There was a survey that came out about 3 to 4 weeks ago, which was speaking about the shopping habits of British consumers because of coronavirus. And whilst obviously the amount of people living in poverty at the moment has increased, and I appreciate that not everyone can afford to spend um, additional money on food and drink, and there are lots of people losing their jobs, and we can't get away from that. But the survey generally said that consumers were more interested in where their food came from. They wanted food which was better for them and better for the planet, and reflected a sense of place, and in essence were willing to pay a premium for that. Premium wasn't defined. So I think we are in a place whereby we are now thinking more about that. We are cooking more at home. We are drinking more at home. That's obviously very interesting for the wine business, because actually the wine business is supported by hospitality. We're drinking more at home,
Yeah,
but that's not making up for the lost sales, particularly in sparkling wines, of course, from the hospitality business. But if we are willing to pay more than the two bottles for £8 in the bargain in the supermarket, and perhaps willing to spend £8 for the bottle rather than
yeah.
£8 for two, then actually that could really bode well for what the industry is doing, and above. Let's not keep it at the £8 level, but as an entry point rather than
Well, I
£4.
think the other thing to think about here is obviously when we were younger, probably we didn't have the internet, we didn't have
Yes.
YouTube, we would have had magazines, newspapers, and at best we'd have had teletext and CFAX.
Yeah.
But today, youngsters, when they've grown up, so they may have been 10 years ago, they would have been 12. 10 years later, they're 22. They would have grown up with YouTube. So literally the likes of, say, sustainability, the likes of what's happening across the globe, and the all the plastic that's in the sea, and the concerns about the increase in temperatures of the planet, etc., and the icebergs melting and what have you. They can see that, and it's a genuine concern. It's in their faces when they go onto, say, YouTube or Instagram or what have you. And so these younger generations are more spontaneous to act. So these younger generations will look at the bottle of wine. And I believe, yes, you're quite right. It's difficult times, Shane. It is for everybody, and it's been decimated, the hospitality sector, among many others. But nonetheless, I would still pay an extra £1 on a bottle, even if it's the same wine, Shane, and I can see something green, because I know that winery needs my support. It's not greedy, it just needs that extra £1, because maybe it's doing something round the houses as opposed to direct. It's not spraying chemicals, it's having to do things naturally. And I think a lot of other people will do that as well. I don't think we need to push it too much there. So this is a trend that's only going to grow. And it doesn't need too much pushing, because I think generally in our hearts, most people realise this is an important subject if we want to look after our planet. It's abused quite a lot, this planet.
Yeah.
And the wine industry for many years, possibly without knowing, abused certain parts, but we're learning, and most wineries are prepared to say, look, I get from nature an awful lot, and I want to give back to nature. And you and I were at the Villa Sandy, and we saw quite a few things, even during a couple of days that we were there, just to make us, wow, this is quite big. And I've been to wineries that are proud of the beehives, or they're proud of how their vines are looked after each year, all the way down to how they produce the wines and the bottles and even the corks. Big industry.
And we're also seeing the effects of climate change. Like, I mean, if you think about the Californian wine industry with all the issues of the fire, if you think about what happened in Australia last year,
5 or 6 years. 5 or 6 years. The Australian, let alone California, it's 5 or 6 years they've lost now. It's going to take them that long to recover.
And even anecdotally, I mean, one night of weather is weather; it's not climate. But Chris and I had the pleasure of being in Italy, and we were out there together and with some other journalists, and I saw the most horrendous thunderstorm, or in many ways the most majestic thunderstorm of my life. This thunderstorm lasted for about 6 hours, and there was about 30 cracks of lightning continuous. I mean, it sounds like I'm exaggerating, but with that came hail. And the hail came down, and it hailed constantly for hours, and it was right at the point of harvest. And I don't know how the harvest did, but one night is weather. I'm not claiming that this is climate change, but if you constantly have weather which is like this, then it is climate. So we need to be careful between one night and whatever else. But anecdotally, I've never seen anything like it.
Oh no! I think we had lovely rainbows, didn't we? I think from
We
your
did.
bedroom you could see all these beautiful rainbows. But I think it doesn't matter what people's opinion are, and I think I do speak to some people that think the climate change is a load of nonsense, which is fine, and there's other people that are really concerned. There are other people that sit in the middle, but ultimately the idea of sustainability, it doesn't matter where you sit on the fence.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. It's a good thing. You can't say there's anything negative to derive from it, especially if the wines are top quality.
Yes. Well, Patrice has sent in a message. He's watching from France, and he's asking, what's the most innovative thing that you have seen in sustainability in recent years?
What have I seen innovative in? That's a good one. What have I think well, I was with one champagne house. I was with the Robert Allais, which
Hmm.
was a champagne west of Epernay, just a small grower, and tasting the champagne. But what the family were most proud of is the beehives. I'm not saying that's innovative, but if you think I'm going to taste champagne, and they were more interested to talk about the beehives and for me to taste the honey that they produce from it, which amazingly tasted like champagne, but they were pushing the honey as much as the champagne. And I thought, wait a minute, I'm here with another journalist and another guy. Surely you should be talking about the champagne. But they were proud that they were the third champagne house under the CIVC to go fully, let's call it sustainable, to adhere to the criteria which is coming in 2030 from the CIVC. I've seen so many things, to be honest with sustainability. I haven't seen anything that I would say is innovative. So I don't think I could answer that question without making something up and I look good. I just think that lots of wineries that are adhering to it are just doing their own little thing. If it's retaining water when they clean the tractors, I suppose I saw that from another winery. When they clean the tractors, he's just got grills across the concrete floor, newly put in, and he's saving all of that water. Is that innovative? I don't know, but big up the guy for doing it.
Mm. We've had another question. Do the marketing consortias for the wines need to influence the growers?
Um, yeah, that depends if good question, because sometimes with the marketing consortiums, they're led by the PR company in question for them. And sometimes the message can be fragmented. Yes, I agree. So let's just say, for instance, the Franciacorta or Trento Doc as an example. I think what it would be good for them to do is probably to speak to somebody like you or to Slow Food as a group, have them come in. Their wineries that are members can come for a day and learn what needs to be to become to be what you need to become sustainable. Maybe then they set a criteria that within X amount of years, can we get to 30% sustainability? And you need to be. And then they have a program, especially with Slow Food, that they
Mm.
can tick boxes. Because when you and I did the WSET2 course, when we
Mhm.
were there, and it's a procedure in place. You have to learn, and then you take your exam, and then you pass or you fail. So maybe that would be the best thing is they work with such organisation as yourselves.
Mm.
So these wineries realise that, hey, it's not going to cost us too much money, but we could get invaluable results going forward. And there may be a day that people will reject a wine purely on the basis that it hasn't made an effort towards the environment, and it could give them negative press.
I think that's a really good point because actually, if you think about what we're thinking about in terms of food news here in the UK at the moment, we're talking about chlorinated chicken, we're talking about hormone beef.
Well,
You could say this is not at all sustainable. We're talking about how UK products are produced in a more sustainable way. We could argue here that they could be produced in an even more sustainable way, but actually, in terms, the big story at the moment about food is we don't want these products because they're not produced in a sustainable way. I think what is happening in food will happen in wine in 5 years' time. No one's asked for my opinion on that, but I'm going to give my opinion on that. But I think food is
yeah,
just slightly
I
more
agree.
advanced in the sense of consumer perception of standards behind it. But I think we will see this in the entirety of the drinks business. I think if we look at what Diageo are doing and other producers, I mean, the reason I name drop Diageo is simply because they control so much of the whiskey production, just as LVMH controls so much of the champagne production. you know, but they are really looking at sustainability in the whiskey production. But they're doing it for two reasons: one, consumers want it, but also they save an awful lot of money doing it. You know, recycling heat by taking the barley and repurposing it and giving value. Then again, I'm quite relaxed on that. If a business can save money and make a better quality product and maintain the tradition, and give a better product for the consumer, then that's win, and great. More of that, please. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, for me, I don't want to go into politics in any way, but maybe, I don't know whether or not it's in place already, Shane, maybe the governments of different countries will support more the wineries that are sustainable. I don't know, let's say lesser taxes, or there's an incentive from them to say, look, if you become sustainable, we are going to help you with regards to, I don't know, a bit of money towards your electrics, or less taxes, or more incentives. So obviously from the top level, I suppose it needs to happen. It may already be in place that I'm not familiar with. But no, I think this whole sustainability, and I wouldn't have approached you otherwise.
Yes.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's in its infancy. There's a lot to be learnt, but there's a lot of opportunity. And as you say, we went to Villa Sandy, and they're a good example. And obviously Motzenbacher won last year, so they obviously are too. That you can go down the route of sustainability. And I've been to small champagne vineyards, we're only producing a few thousand bottles. You can go down and reduce your negative footprint on the world, yet still produce fine wine, still make a profit. It doesn't hinder your agenda, where you vision, where you want to be. But what it could do, if we don't know where we'll be in 10 years' time, 15, 20, 30 years' time, it may be that the government set in place that one has to be sustainable to a certain degree. So you are prepared. If you're doing the work now, you're prepared for your future generations in your business.
Yeah. No, I think absolutely, and it's certainly going to happen. This has been absolutely fascinating, and we are really proud to be working with you. For those of you that are listening and want to know a little bit more about Glass of Bubbly, then please go to the Glass of Bubbly website. Chris posts really fascinating information and tidbits and stories, and there's a blog and all kinds of things happening, and that goes on throughout the year. That's important. The awards happen annually, but do have a look at the website and subscribe to his news. You'll get things throughout the year. Those of you that are particularly interested in slow wine, go and have a look at the Slow Wine Guide. If you go to slowfood.com, coming up very shortly, probably in the next 3 months, just after Christmas probably, we will have a complete relaunch of the Slow Food in the UK website, and we'll be launching slow wine there as well. So that's something to look out for. For the rest of this weekend, we still have the Terra Madre Fringe taking place here, where we have opinion formers and thought leaders doing all kinds of really interesting things. The next session is all about children's education and how that can influence people throughout the rest of their lives. We then have a tasting, and that is then followed by a screening around real bread. Tomorrow we have a session on farming in areas of outstanding natural beauty. We have cheese tastings. We have other films. So whatever your choice and taste in food, there's going to be something for you for the rest of the weekend. You can find tickets and details on all of those at the terramadrefringe.com website. Chris, it's been really wonderful to have you here. Tell us again when the results are going to be announced.
Well, what we're going to do this year, because we can't do the dinner at the Marriott Hotel, which we usually do, which you kindly came to last year, we're going to have an online movie premiere on the 29th of October. I believe it's 8 p.m. UK time. And what we've decided to do this year is to have a message. Each of the trophies are going to be stated by people from around the world in the wine or arts industry, sharing a message of hope and love to anybody in the hospitality wine sector that's been affected, delivering the trophy announcements. So yes, we're going to go virtual. We don't want to, but we have to. But nonetheless, I think you sent me the email just now.
I don't know who's won. I need to. This is the thing.
You're going to be part of the video, though. So don't. Yeah.
Indeed. And people at home, are we all able to watch this live stream?
It will go out onto our Facebook and Instagram channels. The link. I've got to do all of the editing with the video guy yet, and I'm still waiting for some messages to come across from Alaska and India and all of this. But it'll be a nice warm a video, and importantly, all the wineries that entered will discover who's won what trophy. So yeah, it'll be good.
So fantastic. So Glass of Bubbly, 29th of December. Watch that.
October. You're thinking
October. Forgive me. Sorry. I've really not had any glasses, but do watch that. Look to see all of the winners. There are lots and lots of awards, but particularly look out for who's won the Sustainability Award. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you very much to Chris, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, people, for watching.
Bye-bye.